make sure to use the BI Livecast hashtag BI Livecast. So now on to our next speakers. So I'm so excited. We've got Barbara Goose. So Barbara Goose is a Chief Marketing Officer at John Hancock. She leads the marketing, branding, communications, and customer engagement efforts to drive growth plans. This session is going to be moderated by Daniel Shaughnessy from OUTFRONT Media. I'll let Daniel talk a bit about OUTFRONT. And welcome, Barbara and Dan.
Hey, how you doing? Great to be here today.
Thank you. Nice to meet you as well.
Daniel, I think you might want to put your video on. There you go. Good to see you.
Great. Thanks so much. It's great to be here today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here as well.
All right. Well, we have Barbara Goose, the CMO of John Hancock. Really excited to speak with you today, Barb. Just to give you a little background on Barb, the CMO of John Hancock. She has an extensive agency background as well. Love to give a little personal information about her as well. She is the mother of 2 boys. Her husband, 2 sons, and herself are huge Red Sox fans. Barb was a big-time tennis player in high school, won 2 states, and a big passion for skiing. But at the end of the day, I think your biggest passion, as you shared with me in life, for your 2 sons, and you're getting ready for next Monday to send your 1 son off to Syracuse University. So congratulations. That's a great accomplishment.
Thank you so much. Strange times, but we're excited that he gets to go.
Fantastic. Well, let's get started here, and we'd love to hear from you, in these unusual times that we're all going through. It's been quite a few months now, but when you're managing a big brand like John Hancock and you look at what's going on in the world today, you've obviously had to make a lot of adjustments with your team and your brand as you move forward in trying to keep the business focused on moving forward. If you could share with us just a little bit about what's going on with your business today, we'd love to hear about that.
Sure. Well, I'll back up just a bit and comment on 2 pivots we had to make right away when we were sent home. And that was mid-March. First of all, we had a brand campaign that was ready to go into market, and that campaign was no longer relevant. It just wasn't going to hit the right tone, and so we had to push the brakes and just step back and kind of revisit what were the right things to do for the brand. In addition, we're the #1 sponsor for the marathon, and within days of us leaving the office, that race was canceled. And so, given that we were so close, we had a number of things, obviously for promotion, and we had to change things up. So I would say that it's been a period of continual change and pivoting, starting with those 2 events right there in March. But now I don't know that I would say at all that we're getting back to normal. But I think we have evaluated the situation, and we are trying to enter the market and be as relevant as possible. We think that our brand does have a role to play now. People are making financial decisions. And so, we're thinking about that a lot and thinking about, how to help people and how to be relevant during this situation.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, being in the financial services field, with the swings that people were seeing when, COVID first happened, obviously it becomes very top of mind with people. What's going on with my finances? Obviously looking at it on a consistent basis. I know a lot of people do that. It's got to be a challenging but an exciting time as well, because that you have a big impact on people's lives. And when you have a brand like John Hancock, it's something that you want to make sure that you're continuing to really focus on the brand. And I know that a lot of companies, when they've been in this environment right now, the bottom line has become very, very important. So when you're out there building a brand, all of a sudden a company kind of looks at you and maybe they become a little more focused on ROI and the bottom line. And that's a healthy balance. And if you could kind of talk to us a little bit about that and and how you guys have navigated that. We'd love to hear that.
So it's always the balance, Dan, between the short term and the long term. And in the short term, I think there are, especially in this environment, there are great ways to help the organization achieve, some near-term results. People are questioning their mortality now. It sounds kind of, maybe putting or sad. But in fact, it's the reality, right? We all went through this together. Everyone kind of thought, is this going to happen to me? What if it happens to me? What about my family? And so we really have seen an uptick in people applying for insurance. And, we've had products that are relevant. So again, it's about putting that best product in front of people as they're looking. So, and we also have a way for people to earn money back on their insurance by just staying healthy. So we have a product called Vitality. And so in the short term, telling that story and feeling like we're helping people out makes a lot of sense. But then we still believe in the brand. We still believe that we want to be able to invest in the brand. And so we actually, in the first 6 months of the year, timing was kind of perfect. We did this brand ROI model. I'm sure all marketers can relate. Always ask you, what are you going to get for your brand? How much money are you going to get back? Where are the sales? And in fact, we were able to look at historical data and show that we'd get money back. So it was an opportunity to get even the CFO behind investing in the brand.
Great. And I know you talked a little bit about the Boston Marathon and how you had to pivot there. Obviously, you guys, I think, have been a presenting sponsor for something like 30 years with the Boston Marathon. Is there a way that you've been able to still build upon that platform, even though the race didn't actually occur?
So we definitely did. I mean, we were so close to the race that it was on the tip of everyone's tongue. Everyone was ready for the race. And so, I think right away in April, we did some meaningful things. And then initially there was a plan to run it in September. So we were doing things building up to that day as well. But, back to April, we were one of the first companies to contribute to the Boston Resiliency Fund. So that was a meaningful contribution. And then in between Boston Day and the marathon, it's 5 days between the anniversary of the Boston Marathon and the running of the marathon. We were able to contribute meals. It's an organization called Off the Plate, and we were able to contribute meals to healthcare workers. And so I feel like we kind of turned the spirit of the marathon, where a lot of money is raised for nonprofits, to contributing to the local healthcare system, that needed us most. And then I think, leading up to September, we thought, okay, maybe there's a chance. And of course, that didn't happen. But I think there's been a lot of good, celebration of the employees. We have over 100 employees that we're planning to run, and we're supporting them as they go into the virtual marathon. And still a fair amount of fundraising has taken place. And so, we're celebrating what did happen, and hopefully looking forward to a 2021 race.
That's great. Sounds good, Barb. Just kind of moving forward, I look at some things that you've done with John Hancock. One of the things that you really did that stood out was when you got there, you made a decision to really move all of your marketing to be really digital first. And, love to hear, first of all, when you make a transition like that, is that easy? And when you make that transition, what did you learn from that process? What was some of the outcomes that you guys saw?
So I joined in October of 2016, and when I came in, it was relatively easy for two reasons. At least I thought so at the time. One, my budget was cut, so that kind of sometimes dictates where you can spend. And second, I'd come from Digitas, and so I'd spent a large part of my career championing digital, talking about the merits of it, talking about the relevancy, talking about people moving away from live TV. And so I was definitely a huge believer in digital. I thought really sophisticated media could absolutely help us. And, we very much needed to grow a new audience, and they were very much digital. So while there were some to that, and I think digital is still the foundation of any sound strategy, I think we also lost part of our audience, and some of our audience misses us because we're not on TV. So when you have a very heavy B2B audience, when you have advisors and brokers looking for you on TV, during the live sporting events especially, it's a loss to them. Like, where are you? I saw all these competitors and the main competitors, and so I think the learning to your question is that you have to take the channel mix into account for all of your customers, and I think that there's a way actually now with data to bring TV back in a relevant way.
Okay, great. Appreciate that. You also talked a little about in the beginning, when you talk about a company like John Hancock and where branding is extremely important, but when you pull back a little bit on that branding, I know in the beginning of the year, you guys came in, obviously made a great decision to do that. As you're going later in the year, maybe a little more focused on ROI spend, when you start to bounce back, and not bounce back, but when you transition into 2021, do you tend to then go back in heavy again from a branding standpoint? Or is that something that you do kind of like throughout the process?
So if throughout the process you mean kind of ramping up, I think that would be the strategy where there's still so much unknown. And I think it's so important to be, to match the tone of what's going on. I don't think we want to get ahead of ourselves. And so we do believe in bringing the brand back, but I think there's an opportunity to kind of ramp during the year, see what's working, build off of that, be able to flex and be nimble. I think one really interesting thing during this time is that production has changed. And agencies I talk to, tons of creative teams I talk to, people had to create things with different kinds of assets, without the ability to do full scale production, multiple months of, $1 million production. And, but there were ways to still do great messaging, videos that lived on digital, whether even TV spots. And so I think that we've all learned that we can do things a little bit differently. And I think if you can invest a little bit less each time, you have more opportunity to grow.
Great. Another thing is, when you look at your media mix moving forward, how do you guys feel about programmatic? I mean, we're seeing that grow tremendously across the landscape. Give us a little insight, what you think about it and what you guys are doing in that space.
So we feel like it's a great weapon within our digital arsenal. I think that it's a great way to reach your audience and just be, super relevant with your message. And you can buy audiences and go where they are. I think early on, like way back at Digitas, we used to say, oh, what happens if you end up on that horrible, site? And I think now there's ways to have, screeners and things like that, that's less of a risk. So the upside is super strong. And, we believe in the customer, we believe in the relevancy of the customer. So that's a great tactic for us.
Fantastic. How do you support your producers? You talked about, where they would see themselves on some of these big sporting events in the past. How would you support them in the marketplace, just so they're feeling good about the brand as well?
So it's interesting, a couple examples. We sent out some Vitality face masks early on, maybe when it was still hard to get masks and people thought that was just great. We got tons of great feedback about that. So sometimes they're small wins, but we also do more for launches, product launches, than we used to do in the past, and even capability launches. So we have a new e-app. It leverages people's health records if you opt into that. So the process of getting insurance is so much faster. It's a game changer. It's a huge deal. And so we created a fun animated hype video to send out to people, and it just kind of warmed the door, made them feel good, made them aware of something that a pamphlet or an email wasn't going to create that same feeling. And so it's just always remembering that producers are people too. And so, what gets you paying attention, gets you excited, trying to use those same opportunities for producers.
Okay, great. Just kind of pivoting here, but like podcasts, I know you guys are in that space. And when you look at podcasts, how does that fit into your media? And, how do you measure the effectiveness of your podcast? What are you trying to get people to maybe do in a secondary action after watching your podcast?
So I think there's, the immediate things that we can measure. It's, certainly the number of people that download it, the number of people that listen, that make it all the way through. So there's certain engagement, things like that. But what we also see is when you have relevant content, and our podcast is all about talking to friends about their money, which we never do that. So It's kind of edgy, it's kind of fun, it's got a youngish spirit to it. But what happens is that we also have a bunch of other leading indicators, like people, more than usual, people coming to the site, or engaging with insurance. If we see a spike, we don't have other paid media. So we do see people looking for the brand, following the brand, and even taking an interest in some cases in our products. Because they've been exposed to the brand, they listen to the content. If they feel like it's something they trust, then they're open to learn more.
Perfect. Great. And then, one thing I was thinking about is, you're probably at the CMO level, somebody that did a fair amount of business travel pre-COVID. And, in these times where many of us that travel a lot are all of a sudden just locked to the ground and not being able to get out and get about. As normalcy starts to come back, as much as, whatever that will be, and you can travel again, do you see yourself getting back out there on the road? And what do you see in the value of being able to travel and what you get out of it?
So I think about this a lot because I feel like I know my family really well right now. And while it's been special to spend time together, and I heard the previous panelists talking about dinners, and that's all been great. Don't want to downplay that. It's I've missed it a lot. I think it's a couple things. I think one, just spending time with people as people. So a lot of times they're people you work with, but you can go out to dinner, you can have a few drinks with them. You just get to know that whole person. And I think it gives you a grounding for working with them that you don't otherwise have. These, in and out meetings where you're staring at the screen. I work in a matrix relationship, so I have one boss in the US, I have one boss in Canada, and my boss in Canada started, I don't know, March. And so I've never met her in person, and I have so many interactions with her, and it's so weird because I don't know what she looks like from the waist down. So it's I think that ability to spend time with people and hang out and have fun, get to know them is something that I crave and miss a lot. I think also that, for me, I've always traveled. And when you travel, it just breaks up the monotony of a week. So you're like, oh, I'll be in the office Monday, but I'll travel Tuesday, Wednesday. By the time I come back, hey, the week's almost over. And now where every day is more similar, it's harder to, maybe I have some level of inability to focus or something, but I miss the breaking up of the week. And also just sometimes the only time I would get alone time was on the plane. And whether I was thinking about something for work or building a document or maybe just a show, it would be a kind of some level of escape. And don't challenge them, but it was certainly time that I missed. So, I did travel, I think, the first week of March, and that week was already starting to be a little weird. So we traveled with wipes, and we were doing what we could to sanitize our area. But at this point, I don't know that I'd be anxious to jump on a flight, but I definitely expect that'll be a part of my routine in the future.
I hear you loud and clear on that, myself as well. Thought we'd play a little kind of some word association, just kind of fun, just to kind of get to know you better. If somebody said to you, client or agency side, you've worked both sides of that business, where would you be in the future? Client side. Okay. Uh, Working remotely or not in the future?
Not.
I agree with you on that one. And here's an interesting one. If you could build an in-house media team, would you or would you not?
I think it's at a scale level for running a scale level brand campaign that over time I would like that, because the ability to be like hands on keyboard in the office optimizing would be great. I think during these times of change, we're in, we're out, this much, that much. I really value the media agency. So I do see a role for media agency. And I think there are some, we partner with Neo, they're very good. And so I definitely value their relationship. I just think at some point, it's great to have a full, almost like your full agency hands right there within the business. It's people that know your business, know the history, and can contribute in an ongoing, dedicated way.
Great. Appreciate you sharing that. Some other questions. These ones are more based upon, proficiencies for your team, for your company. And if you think about it, are you good or do you need work? And just kind of give us a little insight there. So if I was to say attribution, what would your feeling be on that? Are you good at it? Do you need work? And give us a little insight.
Well, it's needed. I think we've gotten much better this year, but I'd give us a B, because we still need to prove it and maybe strive for that A.
Okay, fantastic. How about creative?
So I think we are stronger and stronger every day because of the work we've been able to do in market. I think we've had a much broader range of opportunities this year. And our team, is really focused on the business and know it. So I forget how I'm supposed to vote. I'm doing letter grades. That might not have been the assignment, but I think our creative also is up and coming. Probably I'd say an A-, especially on some of the products that we're working on right now.
Okay, fantastic. Programmatic. We talked about that a little earlier. How do you think you guys are doing in executing that?
So I think we're doing a good job because we're putting it into the mix. We're putting the emphasis there. We're going to do better with scale. So, we're anxious to get more scale. Our model gave us a definition of kind of what digital scale looks like. And we could honestly double what we're spending and it'll help our return. So, like I said about that ramp, we're going on the on-ramp now. And we would plan to spend more there, but that's a tool that I think is definitely working.
And a little self-serving, when you see that the advances that are happening in programmatic in the digital out-of-home space, is that an area that you would see yourselves like maybe dabbling in, taking a look at?
I definitely think so. And I know you think I'm just playing into you, but I do think that if something is different, if something looks unexpected or not in place, then it is something that can catch people's eye. And, there are times, we even talked about in the past that people are going to pay attention if they're in the future sitting somewhere on a subway and, there's digital display ads there. Where are you going to go? So I think that's relevant. I think that also the ability to target has so much more over time improved, so that if we want to put things in our producers' backyard, so to speak, and have them be seeing what we're advertising elsewhere, we could use that strategy. In fact, we have used a more traditional kind of outdoor for that, but that works well. So I'm definitely open to keeping that in the mix.
Fantastic. As far as like the influencer space, like social media, for your category, is that something that you guys have tapped into? Do you see it as a growing area for you?
So influencers in particular, we tried, but we didn't get the return there as much as we have from other areas. While I think certain individuals certainly have a huge following, you kind of figure it out over time. in most cases, people are looking for that person, are looking at what's happening in that person's life. And that's a one step removed to try to engage in a brand, or in some cases, it could be a lot of different brands in the mix, day after day. So I think influencers is something early on that maybe much better because there weren't as many. I kind of believe that it's gotten a bit flooded. So it's harder to break through with that strategy today.
Okay. How about OTT and streaming?
Say again, sorry.
Over the top and streaming, is that an area that you guys see putting a lot of focus in?
I do believe in that because that's where customers are. So, if you think about how much we've all consumed in streaming, in the last 6 months.
Oh my goodness,
I was talking to someone the other day and I was like, I've seen that show, I've seen that show, I've seen that show, I need something else. So where there is the opportunity to, to bring advertising, hopefully in a way that people will find, again, relevant or interesting or contextual, like on Hulu, those types of platforms are definitely something that we think highly of. That makes sense.
Excellent. I think we're getting close to that time where we're going to start taking some Q&A from some people. Wanted to see if they were going to start feeding some of that in. I don't see any Q&A yet, but it should be coming.
Jeopardy, I should just give you the answer before there's the question.
Exactly, and then I'll match it up to that question. Davina, are you guys going to be putting some Q&A up here? Hope we didn't lose them.
We're actually just talking to ourselves. No one else is listening.
I know, they've all left. They're all gone. When you look at the second half of the year right now, especially as you move towards the holidays, will you guys do anything differently this year? I mean, obviously this is going to be a little different across the world. In the US, not as many people probably traveling for the holidays. So when you're trying to interact, with your consumers, is there anything that you would probably do?
I think you take pandemic plus election plus, like you said, different kind of holidays. And it's hard to figure out where to be, where you could get your own voice heard. So we will do some things. We have some targeted product plays going on. But I think in terms of a bigger brand campaign, we're going to build towards next year. And then I think we will be able to get a greater share of voice for not as much money and hopefully be a little farther away from, some of the noise of the fall.
Okay, great. Here, I've got a bunch of questions coming through. Here's a great one. As a leader, you are always developing your abilities. And what type of skills would you like your marketing team to develop this year?
So, I think this year's been hard and people have different complexities at home that have made it hard for them. So in terms of skills that I think I look for in my leaders and my team, I think not only do people have to have some level of resilience, the ability to pivot and take risks because we're doing things we haven't done before, but at the same time, I think it's about attitude. And, there were a lot of people that were really, really scared, especially early on. And you can't take that away from people. But I think more and more the people that come in with good attitudes, like, hey, I don't have the best desk chair, but I'm going to make it work. I don't have, the best snacks at home, but I'm going to make it work. And people suggesting getting together for virtual cocktail parties or sending, a reward and recognition note to a peer. Those are the people that I think are actually demonstrating leadership because they're, seeing the positive through a really tough time. So, people are vulnerable. It's a hard time for sure, but I actually give a lot of credit to people that have figured out a way. The other thing I'll just add from a leadership perspective is, I think over time we all learned that we had to say no. And you're not going to win any awards at work by saying no to work, but at the same time, it's about having your limits, owning your lunchtime, setting down at the end of the day, and letting people know that's what you're doing. Our team keeps a running thread, and it's like people are like, I'm going for a walk, I'm going for a run, I'm done for the day, I'm going to pick up at daycare, whatever it is. And a fair level of respect for people's time.
Okay, great. What trends in consumer behavior are of particular importance to you and marketers now, and how are they consuming media differently? How are they interacting with your brands differently?
So, I definitely look at the trends in our category, and we have a consumer panel that we interact with on a regular basis. What we're seeing is that people want advice. People want to know what to do with their finances. They're scared by everything that's happened, and they're trying to figure it out. And we actually have a digital campaign that's been in market over the summer, and it's called Questions. And it's basically, it's okay to question. And it's gotten a lot of traction because I think it shows our vulnerability. It shows that it's okay for, a customer to have vulnerability in the subject. And nobody knows everything, and everything's changing so fast. So, I think that's probably, I'd say, the biggest consumer insight that we've had recently. And then the question about media, we've talked a little bit about digital media, but when we can, social has had a good return for us. We've pulled back, hopefully on Facebook. But programmatic, as we've talked to, streaming, being able to show videos in different digital spaces is a very powerful way to go, because people want to be entertained. They want video media. And so I would say using digital media, but using a lot of video.
Okay, great. That's good info. What is the best advice you've been given as a leader or as a manager of others that's really stayed with you through your career?
So I actually would think that it's about, this goes back a while, but it stayed relevant. So that's maybe why it comes to mind. So I think for a good portion of my career, I was always thinking, what am I doing? What are the people next to me doing? What am I supposed to be doing? And you're kind of, I was in a business analyst program, I was in kind of these settings where there were groups of people similar to me going through maybe similar paths. So, so I was always thinking about me, my work, and what I was taught, maybe, midway through Digitas is that, so I don't know how many years ago that is at this point, but a while ago, maybe 10 years ago. But it's someone said you should manage up as much as you manage down. And so, instead of just worrying about the impact you're making or the work you're doing, think about the relationships, think about, what's important to different people at the top and what are they trying to do and how can you help them? How do you make them more successful? And so I think that that was really helpful because it taught me to share work and do that really proactively more often than I might have otherwise done that. It taught me, can't do it now, but go get a coffee, go for a walk, spend time with people so you have your pulse on what the business is doing, what they want to do, and again, what's important often to your boss or to their peers. I think a lot.
Okay, great. That's awesome. Boston Marathon, somebody's asking, will it still be a part of your strategy in the future? And would you look to build it larger, or would you probably still keep it at the same level? You guys are obviously very involved with it to begin with.
So we are definitely still in the Boston Marathon. We are a partner through 2023. So, we are looking for ways with the BAA to hopefully bring that forward as a very successful event for the years to come. And I think that the only way we could do it larger, I would say, is to increase our activation around the event. And a couple of years ago, we did a survey, and we used to advertise, or we used to actually have this huge booth in the expo. And maybe some people are local, they went to the expo, and tons of sneaker companies are there. It's got like just a feeling of something's happening, and there's like usually interactive aspects of the different booths and tons of giveaways, right? You walk around with your bag, you get your stuff. And we had a big display, and we'd bring in athletes things, and we had a movie about the course with bleachers, like the whole thing. Anyway, we did a survey, and we asked people, like, who do you remember being in the expo? And there were relevant people that should have known, and we didn't even come up. And then people put other brands in there, like New Balance, and they don't even participate in the expo, but they just thought, oh, a sneaker company, of course they'd be there. And so kind of what we learned is that there's certain places where people expect us to be, will remember that we were there. And then in some cases, we were doing things that people weren't getting credit for. People didn't know, that we were there. People weren't, seeing that as value. So in fact, we pulled back on some of the activation. So we feel like the way we participate now is a robust way, is a meaningful way. We're really good partners with the BAA. We've kind of gone through all these turbulent times with them, but we feel kind of good about the commitment we have today. But if you think of something I'm totally missing, that person should let me know. I think you might be on mute. Are you on mute?
Oops.
Okay.
The financial services category. When you look at the the female consumers, there's something that you guys are doing in the marketplace today to be better at that.
So obviously we want to be relevant to all of our consumers, but
Sure.
In some cases we find that some consumers, like on average, the women might not be giving us as much credit as we feel we're getting from our overall mass audience. And so when we did this questions campaign this summer, it was off of research that we did with women. And we're finding that a lot of people, it's resonating with. But we picked it because it was particularly meaningful for women. Women told us, we are smart. We're smart like men and understand the finances. And, we, in some cases, need an education, but we don't always see a window to ask questions. A lot of companies just assume you know what all those acronyms are. You just assume, you understand, the compounded rate of return and why you should be investing in retirement. I mean, people are like, where do I invest? What are the options? And so when stepping back and posing some fun questions, or perhaps some silly questions, we got people to start engaging, and it kind of showed people that it was okay to ask questions, and that worked really well. So we do feel like it's a start to, or I shouldn't say a start, but building on what we've been doing to, let women know that our brand is a brand that, wants them to join us, to buy from us, to participate with us. So, I think the best thing to do is to listen to customers. Sometimes if you're not getting it right, is to pivot.
That sounds great. Yeah, I can tell you in our household, my wife is the chief financial officer. I mean, she is the one who manages everything, understands it. So she's right in your wheelhouse there. Look and see if we have some more questions here. How do you work with your agency partners, and do you have an internal group, and how is that structured and connected to your agencies?
So we have worked with creative agencies as well as media agencies in my tenure, but over time, over the 4 years I've been there, we've built an in-house creative agency, and we're really relying on them more and more. In fact, now they're doing all the work that we're doing creatively. And as I indicated before, there's been that learning curve about, how to do the brand work, how to do product work, but we've really come a long way, and I'm super proud of that team. Because of the in and out of the market and the, inconsistency of the decisions of spend, we've kept our media agency, and they've been a great partner. So we use Neo, and they've been great at just flexing with us. But our creative team works with them. I would say that's one thing we continue to focus on and want to do better, because I think when creative people understand the media and media people understand the creative, you're going to get the best output. And so, we try to bring both of those groups together. We previously worked with Heat, and they were a very strong creative agency. It was something that we were able to bring in-house and do, we believe, as or more effectively as people got to know the business. And it was an efficient and smart solution for us.
Barb, thanks so much. This has been fantastic. I mean, we're near the end of our time here, and we really, really enjoyed the time you spent with us, the insights, and just giving us a better understanding of how you operate and, how the John Hancock brand is moving forward. And we wish you nothing but all of the successes that can happen for you and your team and your brand moving forward.
Appreciate it, Dan. Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me, for Brand Innovators having me. Thanks, Davina. It's a pleasure to join you guys.
Thanks so much for joining us. It was a great conversation. I love, so we